right, we'll get this thing cracking. All right, welcome in to On My Block, the Green Bay Packer podcast with myself, Ahman Green, and my good old friend, teammate, and destroyer, D tackles, Mike Wahle.
That's it.
when we were playing, and so he was our certified in-house badass. Okay, that was Mike's title beyond being Pro Bowl guard for our team during our days together. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
What's up, brother? Yeah, thanks for that intro, man. I'll tell you what's funny is like, you remember some things that because people say a lot, especially if you're an offensive lineman, you probably don't know this, but as offensive lineman, people say a lot of bad things about you.
Yeah,
right?
No, I know.
And so when you get a compliment, every once in a while you get a compliment, you're like, oh, damn, like it makes you feel like you're 10 feet tall. And I can't remember who wrote it, but the nicest thing that anyone ever said about me was that they just said this kid's a damn street fighter. That's the nicest thing. Like of all the things you could say, like not that he's good, not that he has talent. It's like that was the most meaningful. That's the only comment, like positive comment that I remember was that, hey man, this guy's a street fighter. Everything else is I just remember like negative, like bad stuff. That's the problem with football, man. If you play offensive line, because all nobody cares about is the bad stuff, right? So we just always think about how negative everything is.
False starts, not protecting the quarterback, right?
That is the one. I'm serious. I'm not joking now. That is the one compliment that I actually remember.
That's interesting.
How sad is that? That's sad, right?
It's just interesting because you are more than just a bad, punching somebody in the face. You're an athlete, like during your days, you're definitely beyond that, and then family guy,
Wait, they may have been just talking about it on the field, but it is funny. Like I remember like this, so many nice things written about you and skill position players, and it's deservingly so. And there's nice things written about everybody, but that was because when I was coming in, for me, it was that like that's who I wanted to be more than anything else. You just kind of how you try to figure out how you're gonna fit in, what your role is gonna be. Yeah. I wanted to be that guy. I wanted people to just hate me. I wanted people to get worried about getting rolled up. I wanted to knock people over piles. I wanted people to think about me so they weren't worried about you. Right. That was my whole thing. I wanted them to worry about me so they're not worried about you.
And that was my mindset. I wanted people. I wanted to be like Ice Cube, that one running back you love to hate. Like, oh my God, he's running the ball again. Wow, he's got to drop his shoulder and run And I did. I had a few linebackers, few D linemen, defensive coordinators that voiced their opinion in the middle of the field after a game. Like,
hey, you remember Lofa Tatupu?
Yes. Oh yes, I remember him.
Lofa was a little bit like probably next generation, but he was a complete badass, right? Like that dude was a bad man now.
Right.
USC guy.
Cardinals,
Seahawks. Ken Norton Jr. coached him in college. He was the smartest linebacker I've ever seen. He literally called out our entire game. My last game in Carolina, we played Seattle. He called literally every play, including a what are they called? The get back to the quarterback. What's that called?
A flea flicker.
He called a flea flicker out of a timeout. And he said, well, here's the point though. He said to me, the two baddest dudes I've ever had to tackle, Ahman Green and Frank Gore, in that order.
Nice.
That's a compliment.
Wow, that is.
Because Frank Gore's the bad. Frank Gore, I was in Miami, his year in Miami.
Yeah.
Frank Gore is one of the baddest dudes I've ever been around. I love you.
No, I know. I mean, that's
what I'm saying. Frank Gore was like 38 years old, or whatever the hell he is, man, doing it still.
Right.
That's a compliment. That's a big time compliment.
Yeah, and I heard that through Najee, him being on the squad with us, Najee Davenport, who played at the U with Frank Gore. I mean, he would talk. He said, hey, man. He said, if it wasn't for Frank, he said, well, I'm the reason. I mean, he said, Frank Gore is the reason I got drafted so late. Because I'm like, yeah, I mean, he was the guy. I remember. And he's still playing now, correct? He's not on the squad?
I think he's in.
Is he in Buffalo? He was in Buffalo.
Dude, I feel like he was in Buffalo last. I don't know. He was taking a tour of the NFC East, man. He's waiting to get the Patriots to sign him so he can get a Super Bowl.
Right, exactly. Which is great because obviously he's what, number 2 or 3 all-time leading rush? He's 2. I think he passed Walter. Or he's like right behind Walter, one of the two. I know he passed Barry last year.
2 ACLs in college too, right?
Right. And it was his nickname, I don't know if you ever caught it. His nick because of that, because I knew that when he came into the league. He was the inconvenient truth because of both injuries, both knees, serious, not just the MCL tweak or no ACL, complete reconstruction on both knees. And that, I say that probably had prepared him for the mental part of where he's at now. Like, so it's no, to him is like, you know what, I went through the worst thing a football player could go through, or athlete could go through, is tearing, having an injury like that, to the mental, mindset to where he's at now is like, I'm in my, 20th year, almost 20th year, and 30.
I just remembered he's retired because listen to this. So when he was in Miami, because he's from down there, and he was talking about how he keeps in shape. He's like, I love boxing, and he was crazy. He was like, we're like, okay, it kind of made sense if you knew him. Which like, hey man, what do you like so much about boxing? He goes, he put his big smile on his face, and he's like, I love that I was so bad at it. Like he's like that guy. He's like, oh, I'm not good at this. I got to get good. And so now he's like, I'm gonna be one of those dudes that's boxing. Right? I'm gonna go box.
Right.
He's gonna go take some. Yeah. Well, no. Like he's like, you might see me on pay-per-view. Like he's like that.
Gotcha.
And he's that like guy.
That. I'm that guy too. I'm that guy too. I like that mindset.
Yeah.
I like that mindset because since football between, I know you played rugby for a little bit when you went over and get your head
like
degree.
Hey, I was amateurish.
Hey, what you played? I played. You know that, and I played with one of your wife's coaches. When I went out to Chula Vista to be with the USA national team, and then I came back to coming back home. I created a rugby team here in Green Bay so I could run around and hit people with that. It was so hilarious though. The first time, you're in that line, and right before the ball's kicked off, these dudes look at me. There's one dude that basically had to take me on, looks at me, is like, wait a minute, that's Ahman Green. No. He like his life like stopped.
Like, I mean, I'm thinking about it from a third person perspective, right? Okay, so guy gets all this fame playing football for the Green Bay Packers, legend, Packers Hall of Fame guy.
Right.
He comes back and creates his own rugby league so he can bully Green Bay residents.
I'm not bullying. Come on, Mike. I wouldn't say that.
That's what that sounds. That is exactly what that sounds like, man. That would be like me. That would be like me going to like. That'd be like me going to the village full of short people up in Mount Soledad in San Diego and be like, hey man, we're gonna start a basketball league right now. You kidding me?
No fair. No fair. But hey, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. But let's get to this game. Let's talk about this game. We got the Packers going out to the West Coast, going against these Niners. And these Niners, the young season for both these teams, we've seen two different teams. We got we got Packers slowly coming together. Hey, Trina. And the 49ers, struggling to beat on the road a Detroit team that we know now. We kind of know where Detroit's going to be this year. They're going to be in the bottom half of the NFC North. We see that right now. But Detroit takes them to the wire. They only lose to 49ers by a touchdown. And then the next week for the 49ers, I think they played the Eagles, I think.
Yep, and that was a good game.
Yeah, and it was a good game. Another tough game, but a team that's still on the rise in terms of the Eagles, giving the 49ers problems. And then obviously with the Packers, week 1, we saw what happened. They only scored 3 points, but then week 2, they get a team that obviously they should beat and should go out and play football, but obviously not perfect football. But this is the NFL. You don't need perfect football. You're not impressing the pollsters, the coaches poll, anything like that. It's about winning. So they did that. They went out against the Detroit Lions and they won. Regardless of how they won, they won. And now you go out to a team in the last 2 years, the 49ers had the Packers number. They've been kicking their butt, manhandling them, home or away, with the run game, and then obviously a strong defense. So in this game here, what I saw right from the jump, obviously that first drive for Green Bay, they marched down the field. So they're now slowly getting in that rhythm. And then as from a player standpoint, it's something now that, okay, now you see, this is the timing I was talking about from game 1 that was missing. Those routes, that some of the balls he was throwing, some of the, in Aaron Jones getting the ball, he's hitting the gap, and those blocks, it's just, everything is fluid now. As soon as he hits the gap, he's through the hole untouched. He's at the second level. He's at the DB level. where even though he's not a big back, he's 5'9", 208, but when you, as a running back, you know, when we get to that second level, that's where we basically love to be, because we're dealing with guys. For me, I got 10, 15 pounds on these guys in terms of coming downhill, and I didn't have to deal with the linebacker. So when most of the time, what y'all did, you know, the guys that on the front line with you, Mike, got me to that second level. You already knew in the back of your head, this is going to be a long day for this defense when number 30 or when that running back is getting second level. So I saw that early with Aaron Jones. I mean, I won't say early. Early it was tough, but then later those gaps, those players obviously naturally get tired. But then obviously the scheme of all the motioning they did, and you saw both offenses doing that because Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur had coached together. So a lot of those arena, actually, what I know, Matt LaFleur played arena football, and he played for.
Oh, did he? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he played for the Omaha Beef, and he played for one of the North Dakota teams in the same league. And so it was the same league that the Beef sometimes would come up here to Green Bay, played against. The Green Bay was a Blizzard arena league. So I found that out. That's where you see these wacky motions, you know, like that touchdown to Devontae Adams, that he's motioning across and he kind of stops, shakes, and then goes back out. It almost looked like a counter handoff, but it was basically a fake out, basically because of the motion. So I saw that, and I say like offense, defense too on the same side. Before I pass it to you, like getting better now that timing's coming together on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, definitely. You know, the thing that's really interesting for me is the 49ers started this game, and what they were basically doing, first of all, the 49ers are playing a 6 or 7 man box, right? They're not like, they're not challenging the run. They're basically, and I think the commentators said this on the TV last night. They're basically saying now with good offenses, like, we'd rather you, like Aaron Rodgers, we don't want Devontae Adams or any of these other guys to take these, 40-yard chunks, 50-yard chunks. We're going to let you slow play this. We think you're going to either and this is the way I look at it, at least, right, the offensive coordinator, whoever's calling the plays, is going to get bored, right? Here, I got a story for you to sum it up, right? Dan Henning, we're playing the Indianapolis Colts.
Okay.
Pete Manning's offense. They got nobody on the defensive line. Dan Henning, we're sitting there. I was with the Carolina Panthers. Dan Henning came into the room on Wednesday, and he's like, guys, and this is back when this is Peyton Manning Colts, right? They're scoring points. Right. Guys, I actually have no doubt that we can win this game by just running the ball every single play. We'll keep the ball away from Peyton. We can control the clock, and there's literally no way they can stop us. And we had Vinny Testaverde at quarterback. He's like 42 years old at the time, right?
Right.
And this is like 42 years old back in the 2000s, not now. And apparently Tom Brady looks like he's 32.
Right. It's the diet.
Right. But he goes, Danny Haynes just looks at us and smiles and goes, but damn it, I just can't do it. We got to throw the ball. And he's basically saying, like, I don't have the patience to sit there and watch that, even though it might cost us the game. And of course it did. They ended up blowing us out. Right. But the point of that is, like, these defensive coordinators are going, hey, listen, I don't think you can go from the 15 all the way down to the end zone without getting greedy. I don't think you can do it. Like, I think if you're going to run a 6-man box, right? If we're going to spread out running your 6-man box, or if you're going to have a tight end in the game or 2 tight ends in the game, and you're only going to run a 7-man box because you want to bracket Devontae Adams and you're so worried about him, you should run the ball every single play.
Right.
But 100%. They know that the coach can't do that, or the quarterback's going to make a check. They know that. And so now you're going to get behind the sticks, or we're going to have a holding call. Like, they're basically saying something bad's going to happen, right? And so you look early in this game, and all they were doing, first series, maybe the second series, they're taking Joey Bosa, and they're just having him. They're stacking the safety or the corner on that side just outside of him to play kind of a box player, right? And they're taking him and they're driving him down the middle of the tackle of Yosh, who, by the way, had a great game last night. Congratulations to him on his first start. Big time situation, big time player. Like, that was monster, right? But early in the game, you saw Bosa penetrating, making a lot of plays, just taking him down the middle and basically cutting off the B gap, even though he's a C gap player, right? They stopped doing that for some reason. They just stopped doing it altogether, and it just became all you can eat as the game went on. So the Niners, it was like a head scratcher. I don't know if the Packers did something different, right, to prevent that from happening, or they just decided, hey, we're too worried about Devontae Adams. He already, Aaron Rodgers already has 130 yards in the first quarter or whatever. Right. And then you see this on the other side, the Niners. Where's the weakness on Green Bay's defense? Well, it's the interior line. Okay. Now Kenny Clark was mauling Alex Mack early on in the game. Alex Mack is one of the best centers of all time, but he's a little bit, older now.
I saw some of the pressures that he put on him.
Kenny Clark's beating him in the run game like really, really bad.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's part of it, but you're still thinking like, man, given the personnel that we have inside and the success they're having to run the ball downhill, why are you continuing to go outside and let basically our two best players in there, right? Preston, Smith, and Gary, you're having them matched up against tight ends, against receivers, right? Letting them set the edge. And then so Preston Smith setting the edge early on the run play to the right. You see this thing, Gary doing it all night, kind of creating havoc. And so it kind of felt like one of those games where you should just, hey, stick with what's working on both sides of the ball. And the Packers, and I mean, this could have been a higher scoring game, I guess is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah,
I saw their potential for more offense, and I'm just happy, obviously, that the guys we have on our side, and ultimately, 37 seconds is just enough time for Aaron Rodgers to pull one out. Right, that was amazing.
It was amazing. I mean, amazing. And you talk about that, and it's something that you're going to bring up here with Garoppolo later, and how you say and getting off his spot, and then that too, not even getting off his spot. What I noticed with him, later in those games, in those crunch minutes, in those clutch minutes, basically, we'll find out what you made of. That was a second to last drive where they basically had to get the go-ahead score the touchdown before that drive, where he had where the ball was thrown into the ground. I'm like, that whole drive, he just seemed a little bit on edge. He was anxiety coming out, like, oh my God, this is where I gotta show that I could be that quarterback. That situation, I saw his true colors starting to flare. I was like, he is panicking. He is backpedaling. He is not being mechanically sound as you usually see him. He drops back. He sits. He processes, from, if it's a flat throw to a corner throw to the slant, all of that. He wasn't even going. He's just like, oh my God, let me get this ball out type mindset. And it was no mechanics there. And it's a little bit something that you see with, I say Aaron, he had a few plays where he had that, where he kind of almost backpedaling, in a play where that's where you should not be going. So it was just interesting to see his, him trying to manage a clutch situation. So it's like people get in there, you find out. What you say, we said it last week with Mike Tyson. Everybody got a game plan until you get punched in the face. So it's one of those things where I saw Garoppolo's true colors, like, when that time's crunch where the game is on your back, you got to get your team in the end zone or in scoring range. What are you going to do? So right now we saw a little bit of panic set in with Garoppolo early in that at the end for the first, opportunity for him to drive down and get a score in there.
Yeah, it's funny. It's got to be such a difficult situation for him to be in right now that they take all that draft capital and they go. I think they moved to the third round pick, right? Or third pick in the draft, right? To pick up that new quarterback. So you understand the scrutiny that Garoppolo's under, and he has been to a Super Bowl and he's had some success. And look, I know the quarterback coach that they used to have there, they got rid of him this year. I think he's with the Chargers now, but he doesn't work on footwork at all. That coach that he had doesn't work on footwork.
Yeah, you mentioned this to me. Yep.
Yeah, he doesn't know the position. So
a lot of coaches don't do that.
Yeah, a lot of coaches don't do this anymore. So Garoppolo's got those crazy feet and everything. And now I don't know his coach now, but it looks like he's working on it. And you almost, like, for me, you want to root for the guy, not against the Packers, but anytime somebody's put in that situation, you want to give them the opportunity to test their mettle, right? And he did come through and make some plays last night. But like you said, the key to the games in situations like this, when your defense hasn't been playing great, is, hey, just let's stick to what we know is going to work. Let's get Garoppolo off the spot. Because if you put anybody in his face, he starts holding the ball, he starts looking around, he gets happy feet, things that you're talking about. He doesn't go through his progressions. And now we all of a sudden, we create opportunities to have turnovers. We create opportunities to have those third and long situations. And he made some plays last night. His receivers made some plays for him last night. He made some
really good throws last night.
Yeah, he made some really good throws. But we did get him off the spot. We did pressure him. I thought we did a good job of understanding, like, we're probably not going to beat Trent Williams, right? Although Preston Smith had some good rushes against him, we're probably not going to get his blind side. Let's take advantage of the right side of the offensive line. Let's create some pressure there. And I thought they did a pretty good job, man. I mean, it was certainly a step up from the last two games. So you got to, as far as being able to build, you got to be happy with that. But just understand, when you play against a really good offensive line, or you play against a really elite quarterback, you have to find out, what's that one thing that's really going to, you either want to take something away or you want to force them into a situation where they don't like. And, they did a good job. It's something to build on for sure. It's great to get that victory and be able to build on that.
Yeah, and I say from a defensive. So we're starting, talking about the defensive side. Joe Barry and that new defensive scheme. So I say for me, the first half was pretty solid, and it kind of it fluctuated. Obviously, late in the third quarter there, when I told you when Jimmy started getting the happy feet, but also that's when he kind of got comfortable and start hitting the dots, dotting his receivers off and driving down. And the catch, I say the throw and the catch to his tight end. Not tight end, fullback 44 was just sitting in that pocket. And you saw the pocket, for the most of the games, the pockets were pretty good. Obviously, I say probably like 80% of the time, but then you had that pocket sometimes just close like just like a trash compactor on Aaron and Garoppolo, where they were getting that outside pressure to kind of basically close like a cup and not let them get outside that pocket, because we know Aaron can be dangerous once he gets outside of that pocket. So I like that. So with Joe Barry's defense, like I said, solid in the beginning of the game, they kind of fluctuated, gave up the points, but then it's still a part of like learning a scheme. They're still in that year one. This is a new coordinator coming in, so making sure what they mean. When they're in a game film review, and he's talking about certain coverages, certain stunts that they're planning, certain blitzes, and they're obviously when you learn a new offense, it's just learning what exactly he means, the verbiage, the understanding is like, okay, when you say buzz here, where do you want me to buzz to? Or if you want me to, mug the A gap, how do you want me to, certain ways a coach wants you to sit in the A gap or blitz a certain way, or even, pass throw and things that we know, Mike. So just adjusting to that is going to take time. And now there's, game 3 is that time. Game 1, they're off. Game 2, they kept Detroit out of the end zone. And they kept in the 17 points. This game obviously was a little bit more scoring, but we knew we were dealing with a different offense and a different offensive play caller than Kyle Shanahan. So we know he's a guy that can score points, and he can do it in different amount of ways. I think what was it about? I looked at the stats list and I saw about 6, maybe 7 players, offensive players, touch the ball as a runner. Kettle. Not only the 2 running backs, but Kettle, Garoppolo, and then I think Debo Samuels and Ayuka as well, all touched the ball on some type of wide receiver reverse or tight end reverse. So he's very creative. So that's where, getting ready for that type of offense to try to slow that down. I think Packers did. Joe Barry and the defense did very good throughout the whole game, especially to cap it at the end and start putting the pressure on Jimmy G.
It shows you too, like it shows you why they drafted Trey, right? It shows you why they drafted the other quarterback, because they look to me, you watch them, you just start reeling off names that they have on their team that are just really like, first of all, Trent Williams is like, I don't know, one of the all-time greatest tackles.
Yeah, you talk about him all the time. Yeah,
still dominating everybody, right? Like, and Tomlinson's a good player. George Kittle, for me, is the number 1 tight end in the league, because he does it all, and he does it so well, and he can stretch the field. Him or Gronk, whatever, but he can stretch the field. Right? Kelsey's a receiving guy. He's a great player, but I'm talking about guys who, like, George Kittle has highlight tapes of pancaking people, right? So he does it all. They have Pro Bowl fullback. They're
Juszczyk, Kyle.
It looks like they have some people in the backfield now that can run the ball. They have all those guys in the slot receivers. We have speed everywhere. So to me, they're like a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contender. Right? You kind of see what they're looking at, and you can see how that offense, with the ability to break, contain, and run at the quarterback position,
right,
is like, that's the difference in the game, really, right?
That's a headache.
That's the difference in the game. And so when you have a guy, we happen to have a guy like that. Aaron Rodgers can break, contain, and make plays, and probably arguably the best person in the league at throwing on the run.
Yep.
Throwing with accuracy on the run is Aaron Rodgers, right? I mean, we're famous for the scramble drill. So you just see how they're thinking. And again, it's like you said, it's so good to get a win early in the season when you're still working on your stuff, working on the scheme, learning kind of how everybody plays together.
Yep, exactly. So moving into Garoppolo now, how you mentioned. So explain getting him off the spot and reaping the benefits of that for the Packers defense last night.
Yeah, absolutely. When you watch the game, one of the things that you talked about Garoppolo, we just said this is why they moved up and spent all that draft capital to get Trey Lance, because Garoppolo is not a kind of player we're worried about as a defense. We're worried about him breaking contain. We're worried about him throwing on the run. And we know that because it's historically been shown that when you put somebody in his face, it's the same. People have said the same thing about Tom Brady for years.
Exactly.
How do you get to Tom Brady? You hit him right in the face. You don't come from the side. You don't let him step up. Basically, you don't let these players step up. You make them go backwards.
Right. Make them uncomfortable, basically.
Yes. So when you have a rush plan as a defensive line, as a box seven, right, as safeties, and you're putting people in front of his face. So you're not trying to rush up field and like get the back shoulder, his throwing motion. You're trying to put people in front of his face. And so he can't step up. He has to back up or he has to crouch and, he has to tuck the ball.
Right.
When those situations happen, all of a sudden you start seeing the rush a little bit more. Like you said before, his footwork goes to hell. Yep. You're not seeing the field anymore. Okay. Those are the situations you want to put this guy in. And the way you do that is you change what we call you have a rush plan for each quarterback, right? Whether you want to build like with Ryan Tannehill, when I was in Miami, we'd go when they went to play the Patriots knew that he wanted to roll out to his right. So they would build a wall on his right side. They would just rush up and basically stop and start compressing. And then everybody else had free rush because it was his backside and they know he didn't like to backspin out and rush to his left. And so they could pin him in there. Right. And so every team has a rush plan, or they should. A lot of teams don't have a rush plan. A lot of teams should. But you see, hey, what we're trying to do is get them off the spot. And I think the next thing for the Packers is it's like watching the Carolina Panthers right now. The Carolina Panthers, they not only are bringing all these free rushers, but when they bring free rushers, they're guys that are covered up, have a rush plan that is like, I'm going to not just try to go down the middle. I'm not going to try to like beat you to the side. I'm going to try to put myself right in front of the quarterback so the quarterback can't step up and he has to face that free rusher 1v1. It's something that, I think when you and I were playing, it was more like, hey, let's get to the quarterback. We're just going to get to the quarterback, or we're going to have a spy, or we're going to play contain. But now you have to be a little more sophisticated because the athleticism of these quarterbacks, you have to know actually where you want to engage him. Like, do I want to engage him on the front foot or the back foot? Do I want him to be able to step up into the pocket? Because with these shotgun series now, the quarterback's 10 yards deep. Dude, the idea of a guard having to set for depth anymore, that's really not a thing. It doesn't right? Exist. Because like, who the hell is going to get Boris 10 yards? So you have to have a plan on how you want to make that guy go, right? Or where you want that quarterback to go. You have to be able to manipulate that from a defensive line standpoint. If you can do that, and especially guys like Garoppolo, screws the whole game up.
Yeah. Garoppolo being basically a drop back quarterback, not your dangerous, get out the pocket, quarterback like the quarterbacks of today, basically, that are becoming successful and becoming, I say, defensive coordinators nightmares. It's something where, once you can collapse that pocket, like you said, stepping into the throw is so important because that's the power and that's the accuracy of the throw for the quarterback. And if that quarterback cannot step into a throw, then a defense can basically, like you say, control that throw. But somebody that obviously, as we've seen, several years now with Pat Mahomes, he's a guy that he can be backpedaling and he can still get the ball there. But now, as we've seen in the last 3 weeks for him, teams are catching up to him now. They're defeating him properly, and he's creating turnover. They're creating Pat Mahomes into throwing interceptions because he's now being figured out. A lot of defensive coordinators obviously studying him. Players are talking. We played him this week. We did this. Put pressure on him from this side, like you say, building the wall to make Tannehill only go one way, force him to his weakness, and that's something that Joe Barry, Matt LaFleur from the offensive side can continue to build, and keeping the momentum going. For me, having everybody's timing down, is very important. And going right here to finish up the comments here. So game plan is pretty straightforward. So when you say that against good offenses now, so what do you mean when you say that, Mike, right there?
Well, we talked about it before, really, if you're playing against a good offense, you want to you always want to be able to affect them some way. Right. And against guys like Aaron Rodgers, or against an offense like that's historically pretty explosive, like San Francisco, what is the best thing for you to do? Right. And we're talking about, between 10 and 20 ranked defenses right now. We're not talking about the top defense in the league.
Right. Yeah.
You want to make them go the distance. You want to make that offensive coordinator kind of stay disciplined, right? And stick to what's working. You want to make that quarterback stay disciplined and stick to what's working. You want to make you want to give their offensive line a chance to hold you, get a holding call over the next 10 to 13 plays. Like we would rather slow bleed than just give up plays all the time, because
that's not good.
The last thing that any of these coordinators want is to just go up and down the field, even if they're, even if you're not giving up points every single time. The tempo of that game benefits the offense, not the defense, right?
Right. And then like defensive players, that's when they get out of their technique, because they're just basically in panic mode. It's like, man, who can I cover? How we're going to stop this offense? This offense is getting 10, 20 chunks at a time. And that's frustrating.
And one of the things that nobody considers, or we don't talk about enough, is the power of having a plan, right? Like having a plan is the enemy of distraction and despair, excuse me. So if you have a plan and you believe in it, your coordinator says, hey, listen, this is how we're going to beat these guys. Okay. This is what used to happen on Wednesdays with us. You come in, this is how we're going to beat this team. If it was a formidable opponent and we're like, oh man, this is good defense, this is how we're going to beat them. Right. And we would kind of tweak that over the course of the week. But when we came into Sunday, you believe in that plan. And just that belief alone puts you on a different level as far as how well you're going to play. So having a plan, even if it's just, hey, listen, we're going to make them go the long haul. We're going to do this. And here's why. Here's the numbers on what they do. Usually if it's a 13 play plus drive, they usually have 2 holding calls and a couple incompletions. They get out of sync, etc. Like you have to be able to go into your meeting room as a coordinator or a head coach and say, this is how we're going to beat them. This is what we're going to do. And you got to sell that so that your players buy into it. And you saw yesterday, that's really what both these teams, I think defensively, were trying to do. Unfortunately, on the San Francisco side, it's like, you guys are trying to take away Devontae Adams, right? Well, we're starting when exactly, right? They look like they're bracket coveraging, and then all of a sudden they're dropping into zone. Aaron Rodgers is throwing to spots half the time, which means they're not playing man. It was a little bit confusing because they were kind of giving the Packers everything they wanted. They're giving them the 6-7 man box and playing 2 shell deep. Maybe they're not giving up the deep ball after that first one. But then you're like, well, wait a second. You're playing that 2 shell so we can run the ball if we want downhill. We got the screen game going because you're not playing man with Fred Warner, because Fred Warner is the only guy who's going to blow up the screen in that instance, right? With the speed that
he
going to take to for running or somebody to block him. And then you're also giving him all these windows. Like you hear Aaron Rodgers after the game talking about, I was going to check this window, then this window. He's talking about windows, man. That's zone coverage.
That's zone coverage.
Man, that's not man
Everybody
coverage, bro. That. Right? So it was that whole thing was a little bit confusing for me. And it's like one of those deals where it seemed like it, at least in part, they got away from what was effective at maybe early in the game.
Right. I mean, you see that last drive, and defensively, like this is what you're talking about. And I see it as I'm like, wait a minute. You got one of the best guys in that situation. You got one of the best receivers and the best quarterbacks duel that you're against right now. And I think, obviously I'm in Wisconsin watching the game, and I'm like, okay, cover. If you got to tackle 17, tackle him. Right. At least get a flag. Don't just let him go straight up the middle and catch the ball. It was great, obviously great placement with the ball by Aaron, throwing it to him, and he was backpedaling it in, but he's warmed up now. But that's automatically, as soon as the play is called in the defensive huddle, you already know, okay, whatever coverage we're in, if it's man, if it's zone, 17. If I'm a DB, I'm thinking about 17 the whole time. I'm having an eye and a half on him. I'm like, if I'm on the right side of the field and he's on the left, I'm looking who's on my side, then I'm peeking where he's at. If he's in slot or if he's outside. Because slot, that means he's most likely going to come my way. He's going to have a corner or a dig coming my way. And that's where he caught the ball at dead center field, where he already took a hit, probably 10 minutes for that, where a hit, most likely he shouldn't have been in the game. But, football, sometimes we already know. I knew Devontae's like, I'm not coming out. I got to finish this game. He took that big hit from the Tart, and it was like I said, and he gets back in, makes that, then comes back in the final drive to get that right up reception, and then second reception at that for another 17-yard game to basically get a Mason Crosby in field goal range. So it was just that for me too. Also was like, that was a little like surprise, like how you not put 2 guys on him, bracket him. I don't care how you're doing it, but in that situation he should not have caught the ball, but he did. And
Glad
we're
he
talking
did.
about, and the Packers win 30. Packers win 30-28. So we're talking about players. We're gonna bring in some, new little section called Player of the Game. And I'll say for me, I was just talking about the guy, Devontae Adams. I'm not even gonna go into stats. You know the stats. We know the stats. We watched the game, but I'm looking at something that we've talked about. We both have mentioned about Devontae and his route running and his leadership, his ability to get open, his ability to catch those balls. Not that he's done it. Obviously, he has not done it 100% of the time. He's human. He's played against other defenses. But when you have that, when you have these moments, a lot of the time he's winning these moments. He could have stayed out of that game. Most likely had a concussion, but came back in and caught to do the two biggest catches of the game later in that game. When those are the catches that should have counted early in the game. You get a first down here, first down there. But late in the game, those are plays that count. And then your teammates, your coaches, and then opposing teams that are watching film, they're like, okay, we're taking note of this. All right, this is what happened. Third and it was fourth quarter, 37 seconds to go. They went a deep drag over the middle. Then he went into like almost a stop route. He stopped when Aaron got him the ball, get it, lifted over the linebacker. So take note of that going into the rest of the season. And we got some good teams as we've seen so far in the NFC, or I say in the NFL early. So that's my player of the game is Devontae Adams. Just the way he stepped up, played through injury, and was able to help win the game. What about yourself?
Yeah, you know what? I wrote down one thing, and I probably should have. I'm going to change my mind. So I had Eric Stokes written down because he made his first start. Kevin King.
Correct.
There's been a whole saga there, right?
Correct.
Huh?
He played well. Right.
Yeah, and Stokes he had he was growing pains, but it's like, man, I see the light at the end of the tunnel with him. You're right. He looks like he's game for it, right? I mean, he was in old boy's pocket here at third down when it really mattered. So you see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm glad he was in. I'm glad he's getting those reps. Yep. But I would be remiss if we didn't talk about how well Kenny Clark played collapse in that pocket in instances, right? And then I mean, I'm an offensive lineman, and after the second series, Rodgers was pretty clean. We were opening holes, and they did such a nice job of getting to the second level and just keeping it in manageable downs, man. I was really happy with the way those guys played, especially the young guys inside. You kind of had expectations. I always think that Billy's going to play well out of right tackle, and he did.
Right.
And then the young guy, Yosh, coming in and playing left tackle. We weren't sure how that lineup was going to be changed. But that guy came in, and I'll tell you what, man, he had maybe a rough, 2 series, and then he was competing, man. That was just really impressive because, damn, Nick Bosa looks like a goddamn cartoon character with those arms sticking out of that jersey.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like I'm intimidated on the damn TV. I'm on my sofa like, oh golly, I hope he doesn't come ask me for a Pepsi. Like I'll give him my last drink. But I'm telling you, he played really well. Those guys played really well, and it was fun. So I'm gonna give it to that offensive line in general, just because that's who I am.
Yeah. Hey, I watched a lot of the blocking, and I said it was just I could count on one hand how many times the pocket actually collapsed on both Aaron and Garoppolo. Which that's not bad. 5 times, 6 times where the pocket's collapsing on your quarterback, but sometimes it did collapse and Aaron stepped up. I think they did it one time. It was a 3-man rush, and it looked like they had him, and he just stepped up and then off to the left and was able to get the completion out to his receivers. But still, that's still a win because you're getting back there, as a defense. And for that, also, not only if you don't get them, you collapse the pocket. That offensive lineman is obviously thinking about that, especially one that's already worried about trying to stop, Kenny Clark, trying to stop the defensive front, Preston Smith, Rashard Gary. He's stepping up. He is showing, why he should be playing out there. And these players have to do that. The player can't leave it up to the coaches of picking them out. Oh, you're going to be the starter. Why are you going to be the starter? And really to your teammates, you got to earn it. And I think he's doing that now. He's going out there. He's making plays. Zedarius is out for a while, and now he has to step up. And he was part of that committee of collapsing that pocket because, Jimmy, he barely got out of there. And that, like I said, on that missed throw, he threw into the ground and it was a fumble. That was Kenny Clark right in his face, along with the other young linebackers, because I think they had a game going on that play. So I definitely like that. I agree. Defensive front, offensive front, and getting into their comfort zones to get into the finish out the first month of this season so far. So we take it to around the league now. So I know around the league, it was some interesting games. I did able to see, like I said, I watched the game, Packers 49ers game when I got home, but I was streaming, flicking channels, and I say a game that caught my eye. Obviously, a big game. It's a big other big game in the NFC that was also on the West Coast down in LA was the Bucks versus the Rams. Everybody's hyping it up, a potential NFC championship. Early prediction, between all the teams, but what I knew going into this week is going to be I thought what it was, even though it was a high scoring game, I still thought it was a defensive game. One of the two top defenses in the league total, but both in the NFC, and Brady's coming across the United States to play there against, his weapons, Gronk, Godwin, the run game, and there was a couple injuries happened. I think Giovanni got hurt, and then
AB was out.
Yep, and then Grunt got hitting his back too. So it was a hard-hitting game. But something that I say for Bruce Arians and those guys out in Bucks, this is obviously something you want these games early. You want the games like this, especially if it's a potential contender later in the season and playoff game later in the season. We had some of them games ourselves where we played this team. We was like, okay, we'd rather have this loss now because then you can learn from it. It's really super early in the season. And by the time we get to playoffs, or if we get to divisional round or NFC championship, this game is going to be long forgotten. But we've learned a ton from this game, being that it was a first loss. They defensed Tom very well, and then at the end of the day, it was just good old plain solid defense. Playing football, they were hitting them. They were hitting them. Like seeing Grunt. He got it. Wasn't an illegal hit, just got hit hard. But that's what I think teams let off of, because they get behind the Bucks or any team that Tom Brady's on when he's at the Patriots. You saw they get out in front, and the team defensively kind of gets discombobulated. They're not really hitting hard. They're not sticking to their fundamentals. The Rams, on the other hand, they stuck to the fundamentals the whole game. They were hitting hard. They were putting pressure on the quarterback and the wide receivers to get open. And that's where you saw the interception happen, or you just saw where Tom and the Bucks offense couldn't do a whole lot early and later. I'll say later in the game. Early in the game they were doing it, but later in the game was just that Rams defense played 4 quarters of football in all aspects of getting the rush in there and also playing great on the back end.
Yeah, that was a great game to watch. It was entertaining. Matthew Stafford just looks like he's a good fit for what McVay's trying to do. He also has a ton of weapons. As it happens often, when you get up on another team and you can pin your ears back and you have an Aaron Donald, just the fact that he's on the field is going to make everybody really nervous. They move Jalen Ramsey around a lot. He's a shutdown guy, but you can't just say, okay, we're going to take away the left side of the field. He's moving around all the time. So it puts I think it put the Buccaneers in some different situations that maybe they'll be ready for next time they play them. They expect to see these guys in the playoffs, I'm sure. But yeah, it was a good for week 3. It's all you can eat, man. It's a great game. I don't put too much stock into week 3 games, but it was definitely a good test. It was fun to watch those guys. For me, the game that just is the most confusing game of the week was watching the Chicago Bears try to play football against the Cleveland Browns.
I do agree. You can have it.
I just, for me, and this goes into our trench warfare segment a little bit. So we're talking about offensive line versus defensive line, but it's bigger than that. You have brought in a new quarterback, Justin Fields, the future.
Yes.
The city of Chicago, the state of Illinois is hoping that he is the first superstar quarterback you have ever had.
In franchise history.
History. You don't know if Matt Nagy isn't playing him because he didn't want him. He wanted Mac Jones and the general manager went the wrong way or the owner went the wrong way.
Right.
You don't know if he's not playing him because Andy Dalton got paid $10 million and they feel like they have to play Andy Dalton.
Yep.
You don't know why you're not playing this guy. You just know that he looks better. You know that the team thinks that he should be in the game from the way that the veterans are talking about him.
Mm-hmm.
You know that they don't want Andy Dalton to play football for them. And then I saw yesterday the game plan that they put together.
Right.
And I thought, what in the hell are you doing? And then I saw Bill Lazor's the offensive coordinator, and shit all made sense to me, because Bill Lazor's the kind of guy, right? He was with us in Miami. He's the kind of guy he's just going to say, we're running this stuff. If your guys can't block, I don't know, Myles Garrett, who's probably the defensive player of the year
right now, yes.
Too bad. But this is what we're running. Like,
wow. So no adjustments.
Yeah. Oh, well, listen, it's a team sport, right? And that means coaches too. So like, AG, if you're the coordinator and you're like, hey, we're going to do 5-man protection 14 times with Justin Fields. Okay. Knowing that we can't block 3 out of 4 of their down linemen by ourselves.
Right. No,
I got to go as the offensive line coach. Hey, listen, you could fire me, but there ain't no way we're doing that, because we'll get our asses kicked. You're going to hurt this franchise quarterback. He got sacked 9 times, dude.
Right.
I think in our best season, Brett might have got sacked 15 times or 16 times the entire season.
The entire
he got
season.
sacked 9 times in one game, man.
Right.
Like, you can't do that to a guy, and especially a mobile quarterback.
Huh.
That means your scheme is so trash for who you have it personnel wise, and is nobody saying anything? And it's almost like questions were asked with this one with Adam Gase, right? Remember when Adam Gase got Le'Veon Bell, and they're like, he doesn't really want him, so he wasn't playing, he wasn't getting his looks. This happens this has happened before in the NFL, right? Like, we picked up Jamal Reynolds that one year, and everyone's like, what the hell we picked this kid up number 10 for from Florida State, right? He made more in millions than he had snaps his first 3 years. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yep, I remember.
So all this stuff happens, but you got to ask yourself, like, why would you do that to a potential franchise? Put him in a situation where he can't be mobile. He's dropping back. They're going to take away the first read.
Yep.
You're going to play man coverage, take away the first read. Like, I'm not a Bears fan at all, but I'm a football fan. And I'm like, dude, you can't, because what happens here is now there's all these questions about, okay, do you even want this guy? Your offensive line goes home and feels like shit. Sorry for the language. You feel terrible, but they do. I mean, and rightfully so. You gave up 9 sacks, but it's like, bro, you don't have a single person on your line that can block Myles Garrett. You don't have you probably two.
Not by themselves. Not by themselves. That's what I'm saying.
It's absolutely asinine that they would even think about doing that. And I'm not bad mouthing those guys. I know that guy's a full grown man.
Yes.
Probably unlike we've ever seen in this league, except maybe Reggie White. Like, I'm just talking about a dude who squats 800 pounds or whatever. Like, he's frightening to look at. Right.
Wow.
And
impressive.
You're not even going to like have a game plan. Like, it was very, as a football fan, a guy who wants to see Justin Fields do well, a guy who generally likes old school teams like the NFC North. You're like, dude, don't do that to the kid, man. What is that?
Yeah. I mean, that's basic defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, one-on-one, or quarterback coach one-on-one, or you ask your quarterback, what plays do you want to run? What's your favorite pass play, your favorite play action play, your favorite run play that you feel comfortable doing, intertwining with all the play action or now RPOs? So as a coordinator and as a coach, you're setting up that player to win, because you're taking the plays that he's very comfortable with, that is no thinking, that he can see the progression and the pass routes of where to go instantly. That's his snap. That's his bread and butter play. And so not to have that ready to go, regardless. You have Dalton start the season, but then you have Justin Fields, in the background. Get out of here. Backing up. You got to have a game plan for both, because you know that eventually Justin is going to get in there. So have plays ready, have a game plan ready, have a first 15 ready for a guy because you got 2 different quarterbacks dealing with Dalton and dealing with Justin Fields. Dalton is a drop back quarterback. Can he run? Yes, but he's not. That's not his main weapon. Justin Fields, he can do both. He has a baseball background, but he has that ability, again, to get out the pocket like all the quarterbacks of today, and then stretch it, run it, and give that defender a headache. So it's just not obviously not wise. You would think a head coach is wise enough to know, I got to have a potential game plan in the back pocket just in case the starter gets hurt. You got to have plays ready. And they're not giving Justin Fields, and then I agree with the blocking too for the line, is they didn't have them matched up right. You had single blocks on a lot of the plays, and play action to where you got him play actioning to the left, but you got him going backside for his first progression read. I said, that's not a quick solution to when you have Myles Garrett. At that time, they probably had 3 sacks. He's like, you would think you would not do that. You want to give the kid more time to throw the ball and not get hit or bothered trying to, get the ball out of the backfield with, to his receivers.
It's just, I like in my mind, I sat there, I saw that score, I saw the highlights, and I'm sitting there and I close my eyes, I picture like being in the offensive meeting room. Right. And I don't know I don't know the line coach there, but I know the assistant line coach is Dominic Raiola, who was like a badass center for the Detroit Lions for a long time. Like that dude knows football. Yes, and I can't imagine that he is just sitting there during the game plan going like, oh yeah, this is going to, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, sure, coach. Yeah, this is going to work. No, our guys will block him. Like, oh no, let's do 5-step drops and let's do all these 5-step drops and hold the ball for 2 pats. Like, I just, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things where there's so much going on. And this is what fans don't understand sometimes, man. There's so many egos in the room and there's so much nonsense going on aside from the product that you see on the field that it just like, for me, I get you can probably tell, like emotionally angry about when coaches almost just to spite, not to spite, but just because their egos are so big, they don't do what's right by those players. Like, man, if you're going to take the L, dude, take the L running, like keep passes, run some stuff where the guy's got a chance, dude.
Right.
Don't just put him back there to die.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think was going to happen? It's so frustrating because you don't know how's he going to come back from that now? Dude had 9 sacks in his first game. I mean, I guess you can only go up from there, but it's like you could got hurt. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Between getting hurt and you say you can only go up from here, and like you said, it's that mental side of it. Like when you think you're going to think on somewhere, if you're a good player, what did I do wrong? And you're asking, I'm pretty sure he could potentially be questioning himself. What did I do wrong? Was I, did I not get my feet set? Did I not go through I couldn't find my first progression in the throw lineup? What was I doing? Did I hear the play wrong? Did I come out of center wrong? So he's going to hopefully not do this, but potentially question himself and his game. And once a player gets in its own head, then that's tough to come back from. You could come back from it. You just got to be aware of it and be able to fight through it, with the coaching. And on top of that, because you're trying to respect your coaches at the same time, being a young player, but then also you play football enough. He won 22. He was 20-2 at Ohio State. He was in big games. So he should know on his own mindset, when you hear an adjustment or a coach say something that doesn't add up, you be like, coach, I hear what you're saying. Or he might not even have to say this to his coach. Just like say it to himself. I got this. I know what I'm doing. The coach is trying to coach me up, but he's wrong right now. Because I've had coaches do that where, Ahman, I want you to do this and that. I'm like, you about to get me killed going over a cover 2 middle. I was like, don't do that.
Well, it's the oldest thing in the world, right? You see so many athletes that come out and they get into a space and it becomes overwhelming for whatever reason. And he's not the kind of kid, and again, like I'm watching highlights. I watched about a half a quarter of this like really live game, and I watched all the highlights and everything. You're trying to pick up stuff, right?
Right.
But what you see is inevitably the game speeds up for him now. And correct. I'm not just him. We could talk about literally every player in the offensive line, everybody, but we'll just focus on now the game speeds up. Now you're seeing the rush. Now the clock in your head's going for everything is more enhanced. Yep. Everything is faster than it should be. And what are we trying to do as coaches? We're trying to slow the game down for him.
That's it.
We're trying to act simplistically. It's not like the Cleveland Browns were getting run by the Texans last week until Tyrod Taylor got hurt.
Correct.
Like they were going up and down the field on him. Like they're not unbeatable, right? You just have to have a plan in place to be successful. You can't just be hoping for the best against arguably who I think is going to contend for the defensive player of the year in the NFL.
Yeah.
Every single year he plays from now on, probably because he's got it figured out. Yep. And it's like then you got Clowney, you got all these dudes over there. You got Malik Jackson's over there rushing the. I mean, they got boys that can rush. Right. So you just got to be really, really smart and deliberate in how you treat that quarterback. But I know there's other games going on. That drove me insane yesterday.
No, that was a good game and good things. And then obviously staying in a little bit of NFC North and a little NFC West. The Seahawks, starting off the season pretty good, but then losing to the Vikings in a say a well defense game. Just seeing that game, I saw little highlights of that game, and Vikings defense probably definitely I say stepped up and put in Russell in different situations. Situation where he made him work, and because early in the game it looked like it was going to be a track meet because they went right down the field. Russell got in the game plan. If it was the first 15 or whatever they had going, worked, got the ball in the end zone with a touchdown throw to, DK Metcalf right away first drive of the game. And same thing for Minnesota. They went right back down the field. But obviously I went away from the game and missed the rest of the game, but seeing the score, but then watching the highlights, seeing the defense step up for the Vikings, getting that, putting that pressure because Russell is a scrambling quarterback, but it's just like any quarterback. You step up in the pocket, you close that pocket fast. And what he likes to do, get outside the pocket. You get him where he stays in, or even in, just be aware defensively, how he can throw the ball on the run and get in that position. I believe the Vikings, which they are a defensive team first through the head coach, definitely did that and stepped up and got that win there. So NFC North getting, they're not the best conference, but they got some tough teams. So they're going to definitely beat each other up going into the playoff run for 2021 here. So I'm going to get into our trench warfare. So breaking down, little things that we saw detail wise, offensively or defensively or whatever we saw. And something I mentioned earlier is what I saw with the run alleys for Aaron Jones early in the game and certain parts of the game where they were there. And the timing with him getting the ball is coming along. Him seeing his run fit. So that means that lineman coming off the ball and he's getting to where if it's a single block or a double team block where they're then pushing up to that second level and seeing Runyon and seeing them young offensive linemen do that is beautiful because then, with the double block, then, shifting up to that second layer of linebackers to get those getting good linebackers like Warner blocked, getting in his way, opening these alleys for Aaron. It was looking good. It was looking, I'll say, efficient, and bam, bam. As soon as you got Aaron getting the ball, he's hitting through the hole. He's picking up, he's getting hit at 5 yards and then falling forward for another 2 yards. So that was another big thing for him, falling forward as a running back, having had awareness for that, because that's extra yards. That gain goes from a 5-yard gain to an 8-yard gain because they'll spot the ball where you stop moving. And that was good for him, so I like that aspect of it, that running back, seeing the gaps, seeing the run fits coming, and then, setting up his blocks too, to where like the one on the goal line where it was a counter. He started to the right, but then saw the way the blocks were going, is able to jump cut back to the left and basically walk into the end zone. So he is doing a good job of letting his linemen work for him to get the ball, in the end zone and ball up the field. So this would be another block to stack on top of the other to move up. And then obviously, my little critique here, other critique is just Aaron getting in his groove, getting his mechanics down. Some of them were a little loose at the end of the game. He was getting pressure on them, but he was able to convert. I know the coaches, fundamentally, I remember back in the day trying to, hearing the conversation of them trying to coach Brett and his technique, planting his feet, throwing, but we already know Brett did his own thing. And sometimes, older quarterbacks like Aaron now, where he's at now, he knows what he can and can't do physically throwing that ball. He could backpedal a little bit, but not a lot. But he did on a few, but was able to sneak that ball over the covers, like the two completions at the end of the game for them to win it. Those are those two throws were like, for one, for sure was backpedaling, but he was, he knew what he needed to do, get that ball there, and basically had the fundamentals to understand how to get that ball and when to release that ball when moving the ball downfield.
Yeah, it's funny on that goal line you were talking about too with that jump cut. You see Lazard was backside cutting off Bosa, right? And so you just wonder if you almost wonder if that was planned. That Bosa was just going to crush that guy down. He was going to make that guy miss on the outside and take that space, because otherwise, trying to drive that ball up the middle, you just go, I don't know if Lazard's the guy to block him, right? You see across all the league right now, where you put in these blocking, you see these, I think Tunyon got rolled one time by Bosa yesterday, but there's a couple other games where guys who just have no business being in their blocking defensive ends are just getting waylaid. For me, for trench warfare, we talked about a lot of it, and so the only thing I'll pile on with you is when you watch it. So Chris Karasek is the D-line coach for the 49ers. He is he's not a good coach. He is an excellent coach. He's arguably the best deal. He's except for Jim Washburn. Jim Washburn's an old time coach. He was like, there's like 2 teams in the league that gave me troubles every time we played them, the Titans and the Jets. And I remember when I met this guy, I was like, dude, the Titans and the Jets always give me so many problems. And they're such good hands. He started laughing. He goes, yeah, those are my teams. Right. But Chris Karasik is one of his disciples. He coached up in Detroit for a while. He's a really, really good coach. The way he teaches his defensive linemen is they're penetrating, but you see they're almost all in track stances. I don't know if you noticed that last time when you watch them, but across the line, they're all in track stances and they're a little bit narrower feet, right? They're kind of elongated and their hips are up, right? They're flat backs. They want to attack that line.
That's a lot of explosion off the ball.
Yes. And what that does, so that makes them more explosive, obviously, right? So they get into you. But what it also does, because you're starting from that narrower stance, if we can get those good double teams, you see it forces them almost to turn their shoulders. And when they turn their shoulders, we're not necessarily moving them vertically, which we'd love to do, but we do move them horizontally, creating that space. And then it always allows that backside guy to get up on the second level. And so that's kind of, you're always giving up something, right? Ndamukong Suh was like one of the few guys, especially in his prime, that could get in that stance and then immediately go back to square and play however he wanted, right? He wouldn't get turned as much.
Move his feet. It's because all forward. Yeah.
When they double, they get turned, especially the young 99 is a young player still. You see him, he gets turned, and now we can rise to that second level and get on guys like Fred Warner, okay, who's a great linebacker, but not the biggest guy in the world. So they really need those players to stay off him. So it's still, he's his second year there, I think. But from a technique standpoint, you can kind of see how those two things don't necessarily match up, because Warner's not a thumper playing middle linebacker, right? So he's not going to come on and take that block on. And their guys inside aren't necessarily doing a wonderful job of holding off those double teams. I think, maybe credit just be to the Green Bay Packers, but I also look at the way that the plays designed, the techniques designed, you're going to get turned, right? You're going to get turned a little bit. So I thought that was super interesting, but that's it for me. I like I said before, that my game ball goes to the offensive line. I thought they played well. I'm really impressed with the way Runyon's come in, as particularly just shown that he's a chip off the old block. His dad was a badass, and he's a badass too, man. So big fan of his.
Yeah, his dad's pretty cool. His dad is like in government now, city government. In Philly or New York, one of the places on the East Coast.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what he's doing, but you imagine going into a meeting or something like that. He's like 6'8", 330. I mean,
he's tall.
He's a large human. You're trying to tell him
very
something.
Large human.
It's like he still's got that boardroom neck, man. Where your neck's popping out of your shirt collar with a tie on. Got that boardroom neck still. I love it.
Oh yeah, we go. That bill's gonna get passed. Then now let's shift gears into get off my lawn. Now I didn't have a whole lot here. This is all you, but I'll chime in on a few. I definitely will jump in. So you can start us off at the top. Yeah, man. So the first get off my lawn is really just, again, we're keeping it in conference, right? So we didn't talk about the Lions game, but halftime they're trying to honor Megatron, dude. Calvin Johnson, one of the best receivers of all time, leaves early because of disputes with the ownership. Barry Sanders, best running back. I don't know who your best guy is. Barry Sanders is the best running back I've ever seen in my life. Right? He's unbelievable. Leaves early because, dude, bad owners being able to keep teams in this situation. It just like, dude, your name is, you have Ford on the back of your name. Give the guy the $1.6 million. What's wrong with you? Go. Like, maybe I'm old school, but like, that guy did a lot for your team, man. Get off my lawn. But that's nonsense to me. Yeah, and they never built a team. They tried to, build teams, and the coaching that was there, they had before Patricia, they had the guy Caldwell, and he was the coach that should have been there still. It was good. It was sexy to bring in Patricia coming from Bill Belichick's coaching tree. It looks great. But for the guys that I knew that were still playing at that time, and they taught me about Caldwell, he's coming from Baltimore. He coached with Bruce Arians. He coached with Tomlin. He coached with good coaches. So he understood how to get his players' attention, how to get the players buy-in, and then you fire him. That's when I knew recently that this organization is really not trying to win football games, basically. Ownership, but again, fans don't always understand. They're like, well, Jim Caldwell's average. He was 8-8 every year. Okay. He's dealing with bad ownership. Period. Exactly.
that is it. That they have systemic problems within their building. Everybody who's ever been part of the NFC North knows it, right?
Yeah.
Look at who they've drafted. Look at Matt Mellon's track record. I mean, it's a shame, right? Because there's so much opportunity. You want all these guys to succeed. Not everybody can be successful, but you shouldn't always be bad, right? That's why Dan Campbell got a 6-year deal, right? Because they're like, Dan Campbell's like, it's going to take about 6 years to change this culture. You need to commit to me more than I need to commit to you.
Yeah. And it happens that, they're not the only organization. I played down in Houston where it was the GM and the owner, McNair at that time, Rick Smith. And then, I come in 2007. It was just, I thought, I was like, as a player, okay, I for one, to be honest, full disclosure, I've said this a few times, I did not want to be there. It was a negotiating fight, I say typhoon by my agent. I find out later some other stuff. But long story short of it, I get down there and I'm like thinking, okay, I'm gonna bring in leadership. I'm gonna bring in that, start, developing that culture of winning, being accountable, showing up to do your job in practice, showing up to the weight room, busting your butt, getting ready in the offseason, all that. What I've learned about football before getting in Houston, I get down there, ooh-wee. I looked under the hood, Mike. It was a whole lot of stuff broken. I was like, man. So I knew right there, I needed help. I put up the bat signal, man. It was rough down there because of the culture. And it started from the top down. Yeah. So game week, we're playing against the Tennessee Titans. This is no lie. And you know how the Tennessee Titans used to be the old Houston Oilers organization. They had employees that worked up in administration wearing Houston Oiler jerseys in the facility during the week we're playing them.
It's clueless.
That when I saw that, and I was like, that was like halfway through the season, like week 7, week 8. Then I said, this is why the Texans are where they're at.
Right.
Because you got administrators, you got secretaries wearing Warren Moon's jersey, wearing Earl Campbell's jersey. And it's like, how you want to develop a winning culture when you haven't let go of a team that is a whole nother team that's still playing in the league. That's one of them. That's one of them from an aspect of like the culture. Like we're trying to build a winning organization. That's not us no more. That's not our identity. And obviously that goes into the player's mindset. We're sitting in that game playing against the Titans where we lost by 3 points because Barona set a record in NFL at that time for 6 field goals over 50. But the mindset of the players during that game, I remember we're actually, first drive of the game, we get stopped, we come off, and then Tennessee rattles off some points. So by the end of the first half, we're down 21-0. And I'm coming to the sidelines like, okay, hey guys, it's okay, we're gonna get the ball because we're having drives, we're getting consistent. We have first drive was like 4 plays and we were out, but then the next drive was like 8 plays and we got the ball in the red zone and we ended up kicking a field goal, or we didn't, or we missed, or whatever. The ball, to me, I'm coming to the sideline. We're getting movement. They weren't stopping us. We're stopping ourselves. But the sideline, every time I come to the sideline and say that, I see some of my teammates on suicide watch, and I'm like, man, it's second quarter, and the game is not over, And we end up coming all the way back, losing by 3 points because of a kicker hitting 6 field goals over 50. So it was just that mind. I was just like, wow, they threw in the towel first quarter when we were down 14-0. I'm like, you can't have that mindset. That's the mindset that obviously keeps the team kind of like the Lions in that situation where they don't know how to develop winners. They don't have that mindset to win because we know, when we think about winning, what do we got to do? We got to show up to practice. We got to show up to watch film. We got to hit the weight room. And then on Saturdays, on Sundays and Thursday nights, Monday Night Football, you better go out there and bust your butt and play football. And it's not, like I said, it's just that word, that culture is not spread very wisely down there. I'm saying Houston and over in Detroit there for sure.
Yeah, it's and just to another one of these get off my lawns was, everyone's going to play hard for DC. We talked about this before. Dan Campbell's going to get those players to, like, everyone said, oh, they're going to play hard for him. We know they're going to play hard for him.
Right.
It's almost like, aren't you supposed to just play hard? I don't understand. Like, I never understand why the media guys and player, I just don't understand the concept of, like, when you're out there, your name's on the back of your jersey. right? Like your mom's watching you.
Exactly.
Why do we have these coaches that can get players to play hard? And why is that? I mean, that's a great thing, I guess. But really, what do we need to do? Like as a detail thing, right? What the coaches need to be able to impart information, put you in the right situation, teach you technique, make you a student of the game, increase your football IQ, give you routines to create habits in the best interest of, like, in your best interest. These are the things, teach you how to be a professional. These are the things that we're lacking in this league, by and large, with a lot of young players. And we keep talking about, oh, well, Dan's going to get him. And I'm not picking on Dan. Dan's a great coach, and this is a big deal. But it's always like, oh, we're going to give him to play hard. It's like, hey, man, Dan's going to be successful. I'm a fan of Dan Campbell.
Right.
I know Dan Campbell. I'm a fan of Dan Campbell. I want Dan Campbell to do well. Dan Campbell's going to be successful because he's going to teach players how to be professionals in right now what has been an unprofessional environment. And we need to stop talking about, he needs to get more talent. Sure. We need to stop talking about, okay, he's going to get him to play hard. Okay, no, he's going to teach them how to be professionals, because that's what it takes. Like, you need to get off my lawn with all this nonsense about it's just, some guys are playing hard, some guys are not. Like, yeah, I do think it's easy, man. We'll just fire those guys. That's easy.
Right. And because that was something, I remember seeing a quote from Michael Irvin when Jimmy Johnson came to Cowboys, before obviously that whole organization changed in the early 80s. And I remember him saying a conversation that he had when Michael Irvin comes in and he goes into the office with Jimmy Johnson, and he basically gives him a list of names of players. He said, get them out of here. He said they don't show up to practice. When they do, they're half-assed. When they don't watch film, they don't break down film in a loss. They want to point fingers. He said he basically went into Jimmy Johnson, said he gave him the list of names. He said, cut these guys because I want to win. He said, I want to win. These are the players that have been keeping us from winning. That was just the player level.
That's why he's a legend. That's big time, man. Exactly. Most people don't have that. They don't have that moxie to go do that, because you gotta have a lot of confidence to do that, right?
No, exactly. They don't. And I agree with you. It needs to be more of that. It's like, and then from the motive, I say the part that really gets me when you bring this up is, why does a coach got to motivate you to go hard in the paint in your job? I don't care if I was a postman. My manager doesn't have to say a word to me about what I got to do as a postman. I say, I'm going to do my job every day to the 100%. So playing football since I was 6, by the time I was 7, I knew that I wanted to play football. I knew I wanted to play traditional sports in general. But I knew one thing. I didn't need nobody to tell me I better play. I need to play hard every play. If I had because I'm looking at, I've coached high school, Mike. I've told you for about 10 years now, and I've seen and I watch sports. I watch college football, high school football, and you see these players and you hear the comments from the coaches saying, I'm trying to motivate them and all this, and I'm like, who are you recruiting if you have to motivate them? You knew when you recruited him, because I've recruited players for esports, and I know instantly I want this kid on my team because I see his passion for it. Or I see
that's because sharks smell sharks.
Right.
Lions can tell when there's another lion in the room. And what we don't do when we're recruiting, I mean, this is probably a longer conversation.
Right.
What we don't do a good job of, whether it's at the combine with their interviews, whether when they bring the guys in the building, man, I used to be in Miami. I'm like, you really want to stop bringing in bad players? Go get Zach Thomas, who lives right down the street, or Jason Taylor, who lives right down the street, and bring him in here and have a conversation with each guy that you really want to draft. And they're going to be like this: nope, or yes, or no. And that's all you need to know. You can do all your other, hey, I like this guy, I like bullshit. But these guys used to come in, and the coaches come down and start gushing about, oh, he's such a leader. Dude, are you kidding? I'd be like, are you serious? Like, this guy? They'd bring in these guys. Oh, he went to Ohio State. He went to he's a great leader. He's got this and this and this. Dude, he didn't walk in the door. I'd be like, that is not the same dude you're talking about. I know it's not. No. And it's just because, a shark can smell a shark. And we don't do a good job of that because everybody wants to keep their job secure and siloed. But hey, we got to wrap up soon because I got to get on something else. I got one more for you, though, dude. On a little bit more lighthearted.
Okay.
The Colts game, okay? This dude's got 2 busted ankles, and he out there hobbling around. Right?
Talking about Wentz, yes.
Wentz, yeah. Okay, why are you in the game, dude? 0 rushes, threw for 194 yards, lost the game.
With you.
And then I'm watching at the end. He's like walking out to shake hands. He's hobbling on both feet. I'm like, bro, what are you trying? I mean, I'm with you, but it's like, you know how it is. You either are not playing or you're not limping. You're not
Correct.
limping and playing, because now you're just telling me like, oh, okay, well, it's because he was limping. Like, nope.
No.
You either not playing or you're not limping. It's one or the other. You can limp because of something that happened in that game, but you can't take it back another week and just be limping around trying to make plays happen out there, dude. Not in the situation that you're in right now. That was almost like comical.
No, I missed that part. But yeah, I was like, when I knew he played, I was like, man, that basically, I think he almost broke one ankle, and then he sprained the one before that. So the week before that. So yeah, it was just like really interesting. I didn't see that. But okay. Oh man. So yeah, let me get you out of here. So that's the end of the podcast. But next week we got Steelers and Packers. So it's probably the two, I say, most fandom organizations playing each other.
Will there be a new quarterback in Pittsburgh?
Correct. Because Big Ben is getting his butt kicked right now. And Steelers are coming to Lambeau Field next Saturday afternoon. I think it's a 3:30 kickoff for that game. And the Steelers lost this past weekend to the Bengals 24-10.
They look like they have. Hey, AG, they look like they have a high school offensive line. I'm not saying that to be mean.
The Steelers?
Oh, bro, they lost everybody. They lost
everybody. Villanueva's gone. He's a
okay. He was terrible. Okay, he was garbage. Like he's not. He hasn't been good for years. But Marquise Pouncey retired. The Castro's gone.
I was wondering where he was at. I thought he was.
The Castro's gone. Okay. All pro gone.
Yeah,
the left Castro. That's 2 years ago. The big fella's gone. Yeah. I mean, they're just. It's like, oh my god, they got some work to do. They look like you turn on the tape. They look like the 1974 team. It almost looks like you're like, this isn't
doesn't
right.
Look good.
Yeah, man,
right.
It's bad.
Doesn't look good. And then Ben is not mobile anyway. I mean, he could shimmy.
Different.
He could shimmy. Well, yeah, that's about it.
Whatever the lower, just the rung below shimmy is.
That's him.
It's not.
Man. That's it.
Been a good run.
Right. He's big. He you got to really bring it when you take down Ben, because he's a big quarterback. He's probably like 270, somewhere up in there. He knows that. But I want to say thank you, man, coming in for the podcast today, and everybody listening in. Go and download this wherever you download your podcast and type in On My Block, a Green Bay Packers podcast with Ahman Green and Mike Wahle. That's how you find us in all the Apple podcasts, the Spotify, the iHeartRadio, wherever you download your podcast. Rate us and review us. And then also follow us on Twitter at On My Block. That is the Twitter handle. And then my Twitter handle is Ahman Green 30. I'm also going to post this once we get it all edited up and out there on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow me there, Ahman Green 30. And then Mike, you can let people know where to find me.
Hit me up at Unrivaled ESS or Process to Perform on Instagram. Yeah, check us out, review us, etc. And AG, great talking to you, man. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, talk to you next week, Mike.